Howdy everybody, we're back with some more RPG horror stories. Our first story today is going to be from user Extra Childhood 8418 and is titled, Apparently, I Knew My Best Friend Worse Than I Thought. Hey everyone, this is a story about me and my best friend whom I'll call LD. LD and I have known each other for over 20 years, basically from our early childhood. We bonded over fantasy, traded fantasy books at school, and spent countless evenings playing World of Warcraft, Dragon Age, Skyrim, and other RPGs. About 3 years ago, we decided to try D&D for the first time. I gathered 4 friends, including LD, and ran a fairly standard one-shot about strange events in a remote village. It was my first time DMing and everyone else's first TCRPG experience. LD played a paladin and the session went really well. He stayed in character, worked with the party, and everyone had a good time. After that, we both moved to different cities. We stayed in touch every day, but playing together became impossible. I kept running games for other friends, while LD was mostly absent from the hobby. This year, though, the stars finally aligned, and we started playing together again. I was genuinely excited. He's my best friend, he knows a lot about fantasy and RPGs, and I assumed he would be a great player. Before I continue, let me tell you something about LD. He's extremely firm in his beliefs. It is impossible to change his mind, and he always tries to follow his own moral code. I don't always agree with it, but I gave up trying to argue with him years ago. In books, media, games, he's always loved paladins, clerics, white mages, and other good and righteous characters. For our new game, we decided to run a short mini-campaign lasting 3 or 4 sessions. LD created a cleric of a kind and just goddess named in certain generic goddess name. According to his story, his character would never ignore evil or knowingly commit evil acts, basically beacon of light in the sea of darkness type of character. The campaign revolved around exposing a local lord who was working with demons and might have been a demon himself. The party managed to get invited to a feast at his castle, which gave them a chance to secretly investigate the place. The other players were carefully exploring the castle, trying to be sneaky in doing so, but LD had another idea. In the middle of the banquet hall, he stood up, pulled out his mace and shield, and started banging them together while openly calling the demons to answer for their crimes. The entire table went silent for a hot second. Then the other players started yelling at him. At first I found it kind of funny. I asked him why'd he done that, and he replied, "My character would never share a table with demons, and as a cleric of generic good goddess name, I can't just ignore injustice." I asked, "You do understand that this castle is full of guards and other people who may be connected to demons, right?" He said yes. So I thought, fuck it, let's roll with it. Several guards transformed into demons, and I told him to roll initiative. The rest of the party was not yet spotted. It was an extremely one-sided fight. LD probably would have died if the other players hadn't dragged him out of the mess he created and fought their way out of the castle. They survived, but the mood of the table had clearly taken a hit. Not only had they failed to investigate the castle, the Lord now knew about their plans and was alert. That was the first major red flag. Okay, it would not hurt to perhaps have an above-table conversation with everyone on character actions. This could be, potentially for this PC, a really great lesson, that perhaps justice needs a more subtle approach. Obviously, potential growth for this PC, but also these actions likely pissed off everybody at the table. I find when moments like this start to occur, it does not hurt to just pause and talk it out above table. Let the players talk it out, let them say their reasons on why or why not something should happen, because that could potentially sway LD's thinking and actions. And then even if it doesn't, at least everyone has their cards shown and everyone is hopefully aware of inter-party consequences if LD continues on the path they're on. During the next session, the party arrived at a village near the castle. They were investigating several missing children, which led them to the house of one missing girl's parents. The door was locked and nobody answered when they knocked, so the party decided to break in. LD actively helped and even tried to break the door. Once inside, LD found a couple of gold coins hidden under a bed and took them. He also helped himself to food from a pot in the kitchen. At that point, I felt I had to interfere. I asked why he only cared about staying in character when it was convenient for him. His cleric supposedly couldn't tolerate evil, but apparently burglary, theft, and stealing food were completely fine. He had no real answer, just smiled and said, Okay, I put the money back." Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. Okay, I find in situations where a character is straying from an ideal, oath, or god, I might sprinkle in some consequences. It can add tension to the story and also help correct a character's actions if they're going way off board. I see no reason why a goody two-shoes goddess wouldn't throw a fit if their beloved cleric was stealing and committing crimes. Over the next few sessions, yes, the game took more sessions than intended because the Lord was alert and party faced some severe consequences. He took food away from an injured hunter, broke an old woman's leg during a violent interrogation, crippled a peasant because he failed an insight check and decided the man was, quote, acting suspicious. And just to be clear, LD was the one who asked to make the insight check. I didn't tell him to roll it, and failure didn't mean the peasant was guilty. He was also the player who complained the most whenever the party received a small reward for completing a quest. Okay, at the very least here, a goddess needs to get mad at their cleric. Actions need to have consequences, and this PC is quite far from any category of good. Even if the goddess doesn't get mad, perhaps people start turning on this god in general, seeing a cleric of her order breaking people's legs, stealing food, and other morally fucked up things. Now with the insight check, it would not hurt to fully explain that just because he failed the check doesn't mean the person is guilty. And again, actions need to have consequences. Regarding the quest pay, if it's in character, the goddess should probably be angry and have an issue with her cleric being a greedy little shit. Now, if it's the player complaining, talk it out. Let them know that you balance the economy and quest pay based on difficulty and other factors. Or, if you need to keep it in lore, explain that this village doesn't have the funds for some big payout for quests, so that is why it is on the lesser side. And you could even stick a knife in it and go, your character, a guy who's supposed to be really good, who helps this goddess of awesomeness and good, would not bitch, whine, and moan if they weren't paid enough. Because helping is the whole part of, like, dick riding this goddess. OP really needs to talk it out with LD about the problem behaviors, though, that are being displayed. Because tension at a table through actions that the PCs don't agree with can be great for the story, but if it's too much, it leaves in-game and ends up out of game, and players start to hate other players. When those actions, though, are a player being the problem specifically and not the character, that will compound things. Talk it out and curve that shit quick, because otherwise you're gonna lose players, or you're gonna end up in an ultimatum where you have to kick LD. Our last story for today is gonna be from user Confused Cleric C, or Cleric with 2 C's, I guess, at the end, and is titled Player Expects Sessions to Pause When They Can't Make It. Using an alt account since my party knows my main account. I've been playing a campaign for 2 years as a player, so I can only observe this from above the table. It might just be a rant, but I'm stumped on if I have any sort of opinion on this matter. This player has already made it clear to us as a group that they don't want us to play without them. The player in question has already had to take a break in the past, either laying out their coming schedule or canceling the day of. When that happens, the DM has canceled the sessions each time. When we would go months without playing, we made other campaigns in the meantime. When this player found out, they expressed frustration that we were playing without them. The DM finally had a conversation with the player that we will continue playing without them, and if they want to be included, they need to make an effort to show. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to run campaigns that I have done. I've done the cancel if everyone cannot show route, and it works pretty well. But it really only works well because my players give a heads up if something is happening earlier in the week. For example, we'll play on Saturdays, and normally we kind of check in on Tuesdays to see if everybody's available. And generally we'll know then or even longer ahead of time. Obviously, if there's an emergency that comes up, of course, that's a completely different story. Like, you're allowed to have emergencies. Let's be brutally honest. If somebody's gonna throw a fit about that, they're a dick. In that same campaign though, I have had a player that was gonna be out for over a month. So we opted to just continue without them, and we made it work. Because I'm not going to cancel for more than a week or so due to somebody not being able to make it. Because I want to play D&D. And we made that work by taking that player and kind of pushing them out of the story for a little while everybody else kind of focused on some other stuff that wasn't the main story or anything to do with this person's like side story kind of thing. Now, I've also done drop in, drop out style campaigns where it's more of like a quest of the week sort of thing. And it's whoever can make it that week as long as I have a certain number of players. Both can work, and both require players and the DM to be as upfront as possible about scheduling. If you can't make it, you need to say so. And that's just like an etiquette thing for everybody. Emergencies, obviously, we're not going to count towards that. But if you know for a fact that if you are not going to be able to make it next week, you need to say something. You not saying something and having this causing a huge scheduling shift for everybody is a major dick move, and if it happens enough, people will consider kicking you. In this instance, this problem player here is being an asshole. I can understand wanting to be there for things, but if you will not make it, do not be surprised when things go on without you. To be honest, I'm shocked they canceled the one campaign and ended up pushing to other campaigns. I personally, if I was the DM, I would have removed that PC and just moved on. Good on the DM for having that conversation though. I probably would have had it a lot earlier though, especially when you hit the point where you're like, I think we might cancel this campaign entirely. Things have been alright since, until the player announced again that they will be leaving for an extended period of time. We as a group were alright with that and continued on for 2 months. During that time, we investigated why a large island suddenly got plagued by zombies. This island was where this player's character was from, and when they found out that was the direction we went, they once again got very upset, stating we should not be playing this crucial story moment without them there to experience possible backstory moments. The thing is, over the course of this 2-year campaign, we were all given ample opportunity to travel to this area to try and stop this problem. Each time, everyone was on board except for the player, who absolutely refused each time. The zombie problem only happened because we put off that problem, knowing what it was, for too long. Looking back on everything, I'm not sure why we let the feelings of one player dictate where we should have our adventures. They have a habit of refusing any main quest when it sounds too dangerous, even 2 years in. Okay, personally, I would reconsider having this person at my table if they're going to keep pulling this crap. If you are not going to be able to be there, you do not get to bitch when the story goes on. If you care that much, you take the story beats that the DM is laying out before you when he gives them to you, or she, or they. If you have a player that is being a stick in the mud, as a DM, it would not hurt to have a conversation. Just be frank, but be polite. Let them know, hey, you're trying to give them a story beat for their backstory, but if they do not take it, the story will move on from it, and it very well may be gone for good. This especially needs to be the case because DMs work hard to make those story beats work at the time that they give them. They set them up to work with the level that the party is at. To have to go back and rewrite something and potentially upscale it for a higher level party is a fucking pain. To be honest, if you somehow are feeding all the backstories into the main overarching story, missing that could throw a wrench in the overall main story. I'll give you an example. Say you have a PC, their village was burned down by a mercenary band led by an evil captain. When you're ready to feed that story beat to your player, you at that point definitely have the story laid out, potential enemies, a boss that's probably a good challenge for the party, and you may even have magic items or rewards that can help the party later on for like a main story. Say killing this bandit captain or this mercenary captain gives you one of the stones to the MacGuffin gauntlet you need to beat high fantasy Thanos or some bullshit. If I was the DM, and I feel like for any DM, that can be really annoying. Especially if you don't have a ton of time to prep and you suddenly now wasted all that time prepping for somebody who's now going to just take that beautiful plate of food you made and just drop it. So yeah, I probably reconsider even having this person. If they're going to refuse story beats and then get mad when they leave for some time and then that story beat has to come around, you snooze, you lose. Despite everything, they made no promises to return to the table, but he wants us to leave the area or stop playing altogether until he can come back. My DM is of mind to cancel the sessions again because he wants to keep the peace. I think this is very unfair to the rest of us who make an effort to show. I'm not sure if I have any sort of say in this situation, but a selfish part of me simply cannot care anymore if this player doesn't show. To be honest, this is super unfair to the people who are making it session to session and putting in the effort. If this person does not make it and cannot make it, then they should be out at this point. I totally get it, life can happen. But if life is going to happen, you have to be okay with letting go of that campaign. Especially if you're going to refuse to do the story beats the DM has for you when they give them to you. Now, in this situation, I as a player would speak up. It is not fair to you and the others at the table to make a play, like a character, run that character for multiple years potentially, 2 in this instance from what they've been saying. You get attached to that character and then you lose another PC because this one other fucking person can't show up and now the DM has to cancel the entire campaign. If this person can't show up and they're a friend, keep them as a friend. But to be honest, I would lose them as a table member. They're not worth the frustration. It is not fair to you, the other players that are making it week to week or month to month or whatever the hell, and the DM who is taking the time to write the story, to prep things, and then for 2 fucking years Have a player refuse to take the bait, take the plot hook and run with it. And then when you guys do, ultimately because you have to, he gets pissy because you took it. You sat there and it went bad. It is not their fault. It is yours. Lose them from the table. It is not worth having them. Okay, everybody, that is going to be it for me today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on either of the stories we talked about today down in those comments. If you are enjoying the video, hit that like button. If you have not yet, please subscribe so I show up in your inbox. If you're interested, I stream on Twitch throughout the week. Link is in the description. But other than that, I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye, everybody.